What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kasey, as always joined by Josh, my friend. How are you doing? We are recording a day late on our usual recording schedule, so the Tigers have just been victims of a extra inning loss to the Nationals. How are we feeling?
Yeah, attempt number 2 on the old podcast this week. Apologies for that.
Who knew that storage was an important part of this whole part?
Yeah, apparently, when you record a podcast and you never delete anything, it takes up a lot of space, and your computer.
They just were sentimental to you. They meant a lot to you. You know.
No, I just deleted a massive amount of them off of my computer. So.
Yeah, they live in posterity somewhere.
Yeah.
But how are we
Forever
feeling?
on the internet, kids.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. How are we feeling? Outside of the Tigers, before we jump into our most wonderful baseball team that we have to talk about, how are we doing? How was your weekend? How was Monday? Everything go well?
Yeah, all things
Monday and
considered.
Tuesday, actually, I guess now. Man, we're Tuesday's already almost over. Crazy.
Busy work day yesterday. Kind of my trip to Detroit's my trips to Detroit rather typically loom over my weekend if I have to go on a Monday. So kind of overshadowed my weekend a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. Just a long day on Monday. So what about you? How was your first part of your week here?
Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good. You know, nothing too crazy to report. I had a solid weekend at a friend's bachelor party. Shout out Troy. He's getting married here in a little over a month, I should say. So that was good fun. Played some golf. Did some axe throwing. Now, Josh, do I strike you as someone who would be good at throwing an axe at a wood dartboard, basically?
You know, I don't know if I would necessarily say you would be good at it off the top of my head, but it might be something that you would need as a little bit of an outlet for yourself.
Oh, I thought you were maybe more referring to like if the zombie outbreak ever happened. I thought that's where that was going.
No, I don't think
it really wasn't. That's
interesting.
That. Yeah, no, that's interesting. It really wasn't like an anger reliever. Like it didn't really relieve any festering feelings or anything. I actually just I was really worried actually about like how this was gonna go. You know, like my neck has some things, my shoulder, and it hurts all the flipping time, and so I was like kind of nervous about it, kind of going into it, and I'm like, but then I didn't think about the actual technique of throwing the axe. Like I was kind of stuck on the one-handed situation or the one arm throwing, but turns out that plenty of people have to do the whole two hands over the head thing. And once I got that down, and once I was able to land some axes in the wood, it was quite fun. And then you add in some adult beverages and things. It's a good time. It's a good time. I will take that over something like an escape room. Like I was like worried that that's what we were going to get ourselves into or whatever. And it was good. It was a solid time. Good time. And they have like games on like a little like carousel info thing that you can just like kind of look at the rules and see how it was a good time. It was a good time. I highly recommend. I don't know if you've ever been or if you've ever partaken, but it was a good time. It was a good time. Then we did dinner, and then we just had some shenanigans in downtown Grand Rapids. So it was a good time, as always. Man, let me tell you. When was the last time you were at the Back 40, Josh?
I have never been.
Yeah.
Not really my scene.
Vibes are a little weird nowadays. Like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you got the specific crowd that's going there, and college students, love country music, whatever. Out there with your friends. Let me tell you. There was not one but 2 group of like senior citizens there. On the night that we went. Yeah. Yep. It was, and I mean like that, hey, if that's your jive, if that's what you want to do, that's great. It just was a little strange, a little weird. I was like, this is the place you chose. Okay. All right. It was live music night, so maybe they were just enjoying the music. I don't know, but they It's the whole thing. But
Well,
what was
congrats
the last
to Troy.
man, just insane. I cannot believe we're literally a month and a half away from that whole situation. Random other note, when was the last time you were bar hopping?
I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay, really. Okay. That was what I assumed. But man, we gotta get you out there. We gotta have some fun out there. Yeah, I mean, you're all married and you have a kid now, so I don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense, but one day.
Outings out of the apartment are few and far between these days, unless it is
opening the door
or...
is a worthy event. Here's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a lot more involved than just two people going out or just one person leaving
it's
the
true.
house.
It's true. So. It's like a whole plan thing. Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, you probably, have a lot of things planned out for you already that you're like, you get home, you're like, all right, we're doing this weekend. All right. That sounds good. Typically how family goes. Okay. That's fair. Well, man, our Tigers, man, what are we going to do with them? We come into tonight, we're feeling pretty high, feeling pretty solid, and then that Nationals game happened. So now we are 32-34, 3 games back of the third wild card. Man, 2 games back sounded so much better, dude. Oh, man. Whew. But, hey, we're going to break down that game. We're going to give some wonderful, wonderful injury updates, as it typically goes. We're going to introduce a new weekly segment. And we're going to rant about some things, because this is the Old English D Pod. Of course, you can find us on all the socials at the Old English D Pod, wherever you may visit the social medias, and you can listen to us on all of your listening services. Josh, you were saying that a little bit of an update in the Google Podcasts realm. So if you're a Google Podcast listener, what kind of update do we have for them?
You will no longer be able to listen to the podcast
on
Google Podcasts. No, Google Podcasts, everyone should know by now, but Google owns YouTube at this point. I'm not sure when all of that happened, or if
it was about 10 years ago.
Business
now. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I'm just that behind, or they're just that behind at this point. But no, Google Podcasts is ceasing to exist, and they're kind of rolling their automatic upload system into YouTube. So if you listen to the podcast on Google Podcast, on that platform, you will no longer be able to use that platform. I believe beginning of July is when that goes, or it's already gone. One of the two. I didn't look into too many of the details. But that being said, the podcast will now be automatically uploaded to YouTube. There is no video of us as of yet. We have not dipped our toes into the video podcasts realm yet. But you will be able to hear the audio there. It should be the same exact quality, just on YouTube. So thanks to YouTube and Google for making that super seamless for us, for you guys.
You're going to make me start wearing makeup to these things, aren't you?
That's up to you, buddy. No cameras, I would assume you wouldn't
go on a camera wear. And No, you're lucky if I'm wearing pants, but you'd never know.
Too much information.
As it goes. Well, I mean, I feel like that's a, normal joke that people make, but, I would love to do the camera thing. I want to do it right. I want to do, the whole, I want to have like a setup. I want to have, I don't want to just come on here with some webcams, I want there to be a little bit more production value involved. So, maybe year 3, year 4. I forget. I think it's year 4 at this point.
We've lost count.
Before we begin with our normal run of show, is there anything you want to get off your chest about tonight's ball game?
No, I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, but the Tigers continue their trend of playing down to their opponent. The Washington Nationals are not a great baseball team, and somehow tonight we figured out a way to play as close to their level as we possibly could. Made some really dumb errors. Multiple times, Kenta pitched the normal Kenta ball game, somehow escaped with only 1 earned run. And even with a amazing hitting performance from Gio Urshela and Riley Green, we somehow managed to lose the game in 10 innings. So par for the course at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to note too, like we were kind of handed the lead too. Like, I mean, everything had to go right for us to get a runner to, well, one, scoring position, but then also to home plate. And yeah, I mean, it was fun for a minute, and then you saw everything kind of fade away. Kenta did make his first start post being lifted after 2 pitches in his last start, so there were all eyes on him, and yeah, just the same Kenta stuff. His line score looked pretty good, 4 innings, only an earned run, in like 77 pitches or something, but he like fell behind like every batter he faced, and he's so emotional on the mound, and like it's just like I don't think AJ loves that. I don't think Fat loves that. He's a ball of energy out there. So he needs to figure out how to.
His body language is so bad at all times.
It's terrible. I like that he ate up some innings tonight though, and really like he got out of some pretty big jams. So that was nice. And then yeah, that Riley at bat. My goodness, we could spend a year on that Riley at bat, but. Yeah, fouls it off, thinks that the opportunity's over, and then for some reason, Parker throws it right down the middle, another fastball, and Riley didn't miss it, and those were the good times. Those were the good times, and then somehow we lose this game in extra innings, 5-4. So just couldn't come up with that timely hit there at the end. There were a couple opportunities for Colt. And then Gio Urshela at the very end there. Just no one could get that big clutch hit like Riley earlier in the game. So, yep, we fall again back to 2 games below 500. Again, keeping things in perspective, we're still 3 games out of the 3rd wild card. Anything can happen, really. But, man, this division is looking far, far gone at this point. But let us begin with recapping the previous games before tonight. Josh, my first takeaway for the week. I would like to nominate Tarik Skubal as the most fun pitcher to watch in baseball. This is Tarik Skubal appreciation segment, and let me tell you, this dude is on fire. I say it, we've been saying it for months now at this point, but his last start was so amazing to watch that it just really puts into perspective what we're looking at and the pace that this kid is on. He lowered his ERA to below 2 again. Dude shoved, went almost 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, and now the world is talking about him. But most importantly, the most important number that came out of that start was 102. He threw a fastball 102 miles an hour, Josh. And at the beginning of the year, his goal was to throw 100. And then, he did that at the game that I went to, the first start that I've ever seen from him in person. Very honored that he graced me with that wonderful outing. And then 102 a few starts later. I mean, the kid is insane. So I was like, you know what? We're going to have some fun in this Skubal appreciation segment. I'm going to go on X, or as Twitter, as some may know, and I'm just going to search the name Skubal, and I'm just going to see what I find, because I think that's going to be fun. And I bookmarked some tweets, and let me tell you, I have some doozies for you. Are you ready?
I am ready.
So, we begin with his stat line from the last game. 6 2/3, 5 hits, 1 earned run, which of course he gave up at the very, very end there on a big hopper to Canna. Little disappointing. I'm sure he's really upset about it, but we were already winning 10 to nothing at that point, so really didn't matter. 2 walks, which I'm sure he's more upset about, and 10 strikeouts. He was dominant. And Sarah Langs, who is a great MLB insider and MLB analyst for MLB Network and multiple other locations as well, very smart woman, had this to say. Lowest ERA in first 13 starts of a Tigers season since the earned run became an official stat in 1913. We go all the way back to 1945 when the last person to do it below 1 was Al Benton. He had a .99 ERA. Then we go back to 1944, Dizzy Trout, 167. 1943, Tommy Bridges, 175. 1945, Hal Newhouser, 183. Now, first off, before we even get to Terex, did you know any of those names before Hal Newhouser?
I had heard Benton.
The Al Benton guy? Okay.
Just by name, not anything specific.
Right. 1945 was a crazy year for him, apparently, and in America as a whole. But .99, 13 starts, that's insane. 2024, Tarek Skubal, 1.92 ERA. We're talking about literally over 50 years and some change that this dude is on pace for. I mean, just insane. I don't even know what can you imagine what 14 starts is? I don't know. Who knows? But the dude, sub 2 ERA in 13 starts. Then we go to Codify. Great, wonderful Twitter account, X account, that they do some really cool and analysis of pitchers and really just baseball as a whole. They had this to say. Tarek Skubal has allowed a total of 18 earned runs in his last 17 starts. Let me say it again.
Whoa.
Tarek Skubal has allowed 18 earned runs in his last 17 starts. That's just over 1 per start. I mean, that is insane. Then they hit us with this, and I don't know if you voted in this poll, but 1,554 people did, and they asked, will Tarek Skubal win the 2024 AL Cy Young Award? 75% said yes. Oh my gosh. Then we go to Jim Costa. Jim Costa, great voice on the old X's, also great voice on 97.1 The Ticket, had this to say. The Skubal MVP case. So now we're past the Cy Young Award, which he is leading in most people's categories for the AL. Why stop there? Why not go to the MVP? He says this. 9 players have won the MVP with a losing record. None are pitchers, but Skubal's numbers are comparable to Kershaw when he won it and better than JV's MVP season in 2011. Tigers are 10-3 with him and 22-30 without him. Only plays, this is before tonight, but only plays every 5th day, yet Skubal is top 5 in the AL in WAR. My favorite, Nugget Chief, who you may recognize as the baseball is dead guy. He is fantastic. Love him. Great podcast, great YouTube channel. Tarek Skubal joins Clayton Kershaw in 2014 as the only pitcher in MLB history with an 18-start stretch with, wait for it, 100-plus innings pitched, 20 or fewer earned runs, 20 or fewer walks, and 130 strikeouts and 13-plus wins. Skubal is 13-1 with a 1.64 earned run average and 139-19 strikeout to walk ratio over his last 18 starts going back to September 1st, 2023, where I might add that at the end of September, he was the pitcher of the month. 139-19. Josh, what does that make you think of when you hear that number?
The numbers you are reading off right now are so mind-blowing that it's pretty hard to comprehend what you're saying. In this day and age, for him to have that many innings in 18 starts, like you just read in that last stat, that's crazy.
Let's talk about MVP pace. So, of course, we know Verlander won the MVP in 2011. Jed, or Tigers UK, as a lot of us know him, fantastic Tigers fan across the pond, holding down the fort. Verlander, started out the year with a 2.40 ERA and a .92 WHIP. I should say he finished the year with 2.40 ERA, .92 WHIP. Skubal currently, of course, has a 1.92 ERA and a .89 WHIP, which leads the majors. Of course, Verlander did throw over 250 innings, so big caveat, big benchmarks to clear in order to get MVP. But he is on a pace that we haven't seen in a Tigers uniform in at the very least a decade, and really, arguably, ever. And now we're in this conversation, Josh. Pretty confident he's going to be an all-star. But I want your gut check. Is he going to start the all-star game for the AL?
It's going to really depend on how it lines up rotation-wise. But do I think he's going to do enough to deserve the start? I think so. I think he does. He's shown no signs of slowing up, no signs of anyone solving the puzzle yet, and I don't think it's going to happen at least until the All-Star game, if not the whole rest of the season.
His starts just ooze confidence, dude. Like the entire team plays at a different level. Obviously it's amazing and it's fantastic that they were able to get as many runs across the plate as they were in that game, and it just goes to the Jekyll and Hyde nature of this baseball team in general. But there's been plenty of times when this team has only given them 2 runs or only given them 4 runs, and it was a close game. And just the amount of competitiveness and that spirit that he has in between the foul lines is unmatched. And I know I've said it, but this is just not a guy that you get rid of. This is just not a guy that you say, okay, how many prospects can we get for him? Can we buy someone's farm? What does this look like in a trade? This is a guy that you build around and you sign for as much as he really wants and for as long as he really wants. And I know he loves Detroit. That much is very clear. And to be fair, he would have loved any team that drafted him. But there is clearly a relationship that he's built here with the community, with the fan base, with his teammates, all across the board. And they need to do everything they can to keep this guy where he's at. Because if he's our $300 million guy that we sign, it would be worth it. I mean, he's right now the best pitcher in baseball, and it's not really close. You could make arguments for a lot of guys in the NL, not many guys in the AL. Lewis Heel, of course, Zach Wheeler, Corbin Burns, all these names are true. But it's truly a dominance that you only see out of like a few very, very, very few people. And it makes you really appreciate too, like, the years of Verlander, of course, in the Tigers uniform, and, the greatness that was Clayton Kershaw for however many years in the Dodgers uniform, and still trying to do things right now. Like these guys only come around so often, and they need to figure out how to keep him. I don't know if he's going to win the Cy Young. I don't know if he's going to win the MVP. He's probably going to get MVP votes, but I don't think it matters. This stretch is well worth, and knowing that this is this dude's ceiling speaks volumes to where this kid's at. 2 questions for you. 1, do you think he wins the Cy Young? And 2, what is it going to take to get this guy to stay in Detroit?
Will he win the Cy Young this year? I think he does if he continues at his pace. He's going to have to continue his innings at the rate that he's going right now. I think that's super important for him coming into hopefully his first real full season. I know he's had the injury history, but he needs to show that he can throw the innings in order to win it. So that's important. But also just continuing that performance that we've seen from him. I think he does win it. To keep him in Detroit, it's going to be tricky. We all know how Scott Boras typically handles his clients, and he typically likes to get them to free agency to make, see what he can get on the open market. It's not worked out for him great recently, so maybe that thought process is going to change here in the near future. But kid is 27 years old, and he's got some years of control. I think he's got 2 years of control after this year, if I'm remembering correctly.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
So still some options for a longer term deal. I really hope that Scott and Illich decide to keep him around. I think it would be a gross misuse of a really good piece that we kind of got for, a discount being in the later rounds of the draft. I don't know what the number looks like. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take some years if we're talking Scott Boras. So
yeah, and it's gonna take some dollar signs for sure too. And my thing is, like, you look at the guys that we could get for him, like Hunter Kierstead, or maybe the Orioles are willing to part with one of the guys that have already made it to the majors, or a Paul Skeens, God forbid, in the Pirates system. Obviously, he's now made his debut, and I don't think the Pirates are going to get rid of him. But I'm just like the normal names that you think of with the prospects, like just we played tonight, the Nationals, James Wood. He's now the number one prospect in baseball. Like, that's awesome. I would love a James Wood in our system, of course, but I really like having Tarek Skubal in our team. Like I love it because I know exactly what we're getting day in and day out. And even when he has not the greatest stuff, which I know we talked about how dominant his outing was, it easily could have gone sideways with a couple, hits that weren't caught or a couple plays that weren't made. Even when he doesn't have his best stuff, that's the kind of stuff that it produces. Is he goes deep into games, gets a lot of strikeouts, fools a lot of hitters, and he has legitimately 4 really, really plus pitches that he can get major league hitters out with. And that, again, just does not come around very often. So, yeah, you could look at it and say, man, we could get someone's whole top 10 prospect list and really have a gamut of options for rebuilding this offense. And yeah, I would like that. That sounds awesome. One, that's not realistic, right? You're not going to get all of them. And two, prospects are so highly valued nowadays, you're going to have to roll the dice on someone. And it's just, why roll the dice when you already know what you have? Got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing for me. I think he wins the Cy Young, and we're talking about the Detroit Tigers in a completely different light, or at least the national audience is talking about the Tigers, and it's a really good precursor to what this team can be going into a year where we're expecting a lot of things out of next year, if it's not this year that we squeak in the playoffs. So, dude's a stud. Keep him on the team. Love watching him every fifth day. Even when he, even when he's not at his best, and even when this team is sometimes tough to watch, I will always tune in to watch Skubal. Unfortunately, everyone outside of Jack Flaherty is not doing great in the rotation. That's my second takeaway. Jack looks amazing. Of course, his last start, which we'll get into a little bit down the line, but had some back issues. He's now had a cortisone shot, so hopefully he's on pace to make his next start. But he did only throw 60 pitches in his last start, so question marks there. But Jack and Skubal, amazing, right? You talk about the last 2 times through the rotation, and we get this from Chris McCoskey, fantastic Detroit News Tigers beat writer. Flaherty and Skubal have combined for 24.2 innings, 1 run, 11.1 bullpen innings needed, and a team record of 4-0. Before tonight, we talk about the other half of the rotation, the other 3 in the rotation. Mize, Olsen, Maeda. 23.1 innings combined between 3 pitchers, not 2. So less innings, more pitchers. 26 runs. Not all of them earned, but 26 runs to Flaherty and Skubal's 1 run. 29.2 bullpen innings needed.
Mm-hmm.
And a team record of 1-5. They're starting to show their sore spots. It's looking like they are overthrowing quite often, not getting pitches across the plate, and really struggling to get hitters out. What have you seen from Mize and Olson and Maeda the last couple times through rotation?
Of the three of them, I think I'm the least worried about Reese. His stuff has been decent. His location's just been off a little bit, and it's getting hit, especially on his changeup specifically. His slider's also been a little bit off, and his misses have been in the zone rather than out of the zone, which you can sometimes get away with. And when you throw mid 90s for most of your fastballs, that's stuff that you really can't get away with. So he's getting hit a little bit harder right now. He's giving up more runs. I think he'll bounce back. I think Federer will get him back in shape. I think it's just a little bit of a rough patch for him. Mize, kind of going in order of concern. Mize coming off an injury. You'd like to see him, kind of fight, and he's kind of doing that for the most part. He's kind of struggling through some outings right now, but coming off the injuries that he's had with the back and the Tommy John, you really just want to see him have a solid year, get some innings under his belt this year, and really make some improvements, hopefully towards the end of the year. We don't really know what kind of leash that the Tigers are going to have on any of these three guys, Skubal, Mize, and Olson, coming off of injuries and starting to build up to the year in, year out kind of guy. But I'm not really too concerned about Mize. I think he's going to give everything he has while he has the innings, and he's just kind of fighting through it on some of his stuff. A little bit of command issues, a little bit of spin issues on some of his pitches. Kenta is going to be Kenta. I think this is just what he is. When you don't really have anything outside of a fastball and a splitter that you can throw consistently, and your fastball is 90 miles an hour tops, and your splitter isn't that much of a speed difference from that, it's going to be a tough go no matter what. You throw in there control issues, you throw in there the splitter not really splitting, as it were, it's just a recipe for disaster. And I think he is easily the number 5 starter on this team, and I don't think it's even close. I think best case scenario for him moving forward is that he can eat 4 to 6 innings and keep the opponents under 5 or 6 runs and hope the offense shows up. I really think that's just what we're going to have to expect on a Maeda start night.
We definitely didn't give him 5th starter money, so that's fun.
Well,
but
if we were the Yankees, yes, we would, but we're not the Yankees.
Well, this is a premium spending of the Maeda contract, so that's big for Illich nowadays. But he breaks off a breaking ball and a sweeper, and he has like kind of a little bit harder slider every once in a while. That's like really, really good, but it's so inconsistent, and like it really is his technically quote unquote primary pitch, but he throws really all 3 of those pitches so diversely in his pitch mix that really none of them are like his main pitch, and he often looks like he doesn't know where to go in counts and what pitch to throw. Ironically, I really like his slow curveball. Like he just doesn't throw it very often. I know that he doesn't really gotten deep into games to really show it to the second or third time through the order. But there's some pitches and some shapes in there that I really do like. Of course, the splitter is still good. It's just like you said, it doesn't play off the fastball very well. There's not a lot of differentiation there. And yeah, when he's topping out 91. Not a lot of movement either, not a lot of run on that fastball. I would prefer him to go to the sinker, and he really isn't doing that too often. There was one start where it looked like he kind of added it back into his repertoire, but not to be. So there were a couple solidly located fastballs tonight that it got him out of jams, and they froze hitters. So that was good. And like I said, a couple breaking balls that were better, but it's just about location for him and control, and he doesn't seem to have it. He looked out of sync from pitch one tonight, and thankfully he made it past 2 pitches, and so that was good. That was good for the bullpen as a whole, but just didn't look like he ever really was in sync with his mechanics. Mize, yeah, every time he struggles, it hurts just a little bit. I know there are better Mize days coming for sure. He's definitely working through some things, and there's definitely some growing pains coming back from injuries that he's had, specifically Tommy John, of course. But it hurts most because you can see it. You can see the potential in him. You can see the ceiling. Now he's throwing a lot harder, which of course I don't really necessarily need to see, right? But it's good to see. His splitter has shown signs of being a much better pitch, like his Auburn days. But it seems like he cannot consistently either strike hitters out or figure out how to get them to get themselves out with either a fly ball or a ground out. And he just gets deeper and deeper into counts, and then he doesn't know where to go from there. A lot of people are complaining a lot about his slider. I think it's definitely worse than certainly when we drafted him, but also his last year that he played a couple years ago. I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. I think he's just really trying to find it again. I don't think the curveball is as good as people make it out to be. He throws a knuckle curve, and I swear, like 1 out of 5 of them are 55 feet pitches, and they just end up in the dirt. And it's like, okay, what are we doing? So I don't think that pitch is as good. I think it has maybe a little bit higher ceiling, but definitely a lower floor. And the slider's the opposite, right? It has a higher floor, lower ceiling, or higher ceiling rather. And so it's like, where do we go here? So it just seems like he has a lot of different pitches that are all mediocre. Whereas you compare someone like Scooble, right? He has 4+ pitches, and a 5th if he needs to, have a mediocre curveball in there every once in a while. That will play well. Kasey needs to find what his plus pitch is and land it time and time again. And it should be the splitter. It really should be, but it doesn't seem to be. I love his splits against lefties. He's still getting a lot of lefties out. That's good to see. That's a positive thing when you're a right-handed pitcher. It's just really ironic that he struggles so much as he does with right-handed hitters. And Reese, he started out the year dominant, right? I think that there's an amazingly talented pitcher in there. He's super young still. You're right. Not as worried about him. He can work through some things. I do wonder about his pitch mix quite often. I want to see him, just like the Tarek situation a couple years ago, I want to see Reese throw so many more changeups. And I know he's fighting it this year. I know he seems to not really have a good feel for it this year. I would like to see him throw a 50-50 ratio between fastballs and changeups and just see what happens. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. But I love don't get me wrong, love his slider, love his curveball, but I like him better later in the game. And I think he just could really value from throwing more changeups on a more regular basis to both righties and lefties. And I think both of those play equally as well. I often struggle too with his fastball in general. I know he's a sinker, and so I'm biased. He throws a sinker, so I'm anti-biased towards that. And I like four-seamers better. I wonder if he throws it actually too often, and he kind of goes to try to get hitters out too often with the fastball. But those 3 make up obviously a larger segment of the rotation. And we really just need 2 of them to throw okay, and this team is doing great things. Mm-hmm. But when all 3 of them are putting through and putting up numbers like they have been the last 2 times through the rotation, it's hard to get past them. Of course, thankfully we have Jack and we have Tarek putting up some meaningful innings, but it isn't for sure the formidable force that we were hoping it would be. Hopefully it's just a trend, or hopefully it's just regression from the norm, and things find their water finds its level, as you like to say. But just something to keep an eye on as we kind of progress through the middle portion of the year. And I can't even believe we're saying that. You believe we already played almost 70 games?
It's crazy.
Just flipping insane. My third takeaway, real quick, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Justin Henry Malloy's first week in the MLB. I like what I'm seeing. I think overall there's been some really solid at-bats. There's been some clear learning opportunities for the kid. But I love it when a guy can get his first major league hit out of the way, first major league RBI out of the way, and first major league home run out of the way, all in one swing. And that's just a fantastic thing. Now, my dad, he did it in a different number for some odd reason. So he was 36, now he's 44. Very odd that he switched numbers, paying homage, of course, to Hank Aaron, so you can't blame him. But 21 plate appearances, 16 at-bats, 1 home run, of course, 3 total hits, 4 walks. This is pre this game, of course. I just tried to refresh, but it didn't actually update the numbers. But on base percentage in the 300s, and OPS plus already better than Torque of a 102. What have you seen out of our boy Justin Henry Malloy in his first week?
A bit all over the place, to be honest, and that's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. He's gonna have to learn, and that's kind of what we were wanting out of Scott Harris in this, experiment with offense that we're running here. You just gotta let some of these guys learn at the major league level and just figure it out. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Colt. You kind of just threw him into the fire, see what happens. His plate approach is very good, and I like that about him. I think that, and this has been a complaint of some people who have watched him more than I have in the minors that I've seen, is that sometimes he kind of seems like he's trying to walk a little bit, where he kind of watches some hittable pitches go by in lieu of swinging at them, and tries to play for the walk to get on base or whatever. He clearly has some pop in his bat. I wish he would use that a little bit more. It's really early to make sweeping statements about a hitter at a level. I don't have a solid opinion on him yet, to be honest, but we'll see. We'll see what he can do here coming up. I hope he gets to play a little more outfield as well. I'd like to see him a little more in the outfield as well. But yeah, not bad.
Yeah, like barely any time in the field. He has been pretty much DH. He's had a couple appearances out in left field, but updated stats. He because MLB.com actually updated and Baseball Reference did not. 5 walks, so that's a little bit different, but the average, of course, does go down because he has not gotten a hit since his first 3. 158 average and a 320 on base percentage. So. Yeah, I think your summation of all over the place is very true. I overall love the at-bats, right? I think at the very least he's giving, at the moment, more valuable at-bats than Spencer Torkelson was giving. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's really a question. And that was the 1-for-1, right? That was the quote-unquote trade that we made. So I think that is a value trade in and of itself and a value upgrade in and of itself. And now we get to put our eyes on something and someone who's been in the minor leagues and working and honing in on his craft and really just looking for his opportunity. I love the kid's personality. I think he's been pretty good in a couple interviews. He's really just kind of been very, very genuine and no PR speak really really whatsoever. And he just seems like kind of, a kid at heart. And so that's something that the fan base and the crowd is going to love in general in Detroit. He just needs like that big hit, right? There was a couple opportunities tonight where he could have come up with it and could have kind of made the game out of reach. We know the pop's there. We just want to see some consistent, singles and some gap-to-gap power. He's gotten robbed, as all Tiger rookies apparently do, and he's definitely had some hits taken away from him. So good swings so far. Not a whole lot of results, but of course we know that It's not always about results in the MLB. It's about the process and trusting the process. So, hats off to Malloy's first week in the MLB. Hopefully, we see some flashes of greatness as it comes on. But what are your few takeaways from this last week of Tigers baseball?
I have a couple really quick observations and then kind of a bigger point here at the end. Really quick, kind of highlighted by tonight, actually, oddly enough, in a loss. But Riley Green and Gio Urshela seem to be picking it up at the plate after a bit of a lull. Gio, after his stint on the IL last month, kind of came back a little off, it seemed, maybe just trying to knock the rust off a little bit, but he is back to being good old Gio Urshela with his contact swing and getting on base. He's looked very good, and then always being that steady hand at third base, it seems, recently. Playing a little bit of first with Torque in AAA, so that's been good to see. And then Riley tonight with his monster triple, could have been a home run in any other ballpark, I think, but it was off a lefty, and that was something that we were really concerned about for Riley. He had that kind of stretch where he truly struggled badly against a left-handed pitcher. It was good to see him perform a little bit, and he's been hitting a lot more recently against both lefties and righties. So good to see from them. Anything you noticed about Gio or Riley here in the last week or so?
I want 2 more Gio Urchelas, 3 more Riley Greens, and sprinkle in some Mark Canhas in this lineup, and that's a pretty dangerous baseball team. Let me tell you. I just love Gio's like bat to ball skills. Like he just looks like a hitter up there, and he'll do anything with the bat to make contact. And typically, it's actually squaring up the ball pretty well, and ending up he'll take a single. He'll just go. He'll take a single. Yep. All right. Thank you very much. And do it. You know, he's not the most clutch guy ever. He's not very good against velo. That much is for certain. We saw that tonight. He was the last out. So, you know, he's got some gaps in his game for sure. But I just overall love the pickup for especially the price that we paid. And he plays some pretty solid defense. So we'll take that. And he looks healthy now too. So that's important. Riley's fun to watch when he's on a tear, man. He does seem like he's a little bit more hot and cold this year. Kind of reminds me of the wondrous Justin Upton days. But, you know, when he's on, there's really very few people that are better. And he's just such a complete hitter. I, of course, would love to see him strike out less. I would love to see him walk more. And I would especially love to see him pop out less, but that seems to kind of be the do or die nature and the all or nothing approach that he has this year. So when he catches it, it's a sight to behold because it looks like it's a fly out anywhere else and the ball just keeps on going. And you know we've been lucky enough to see it in person, and the balls that he squares up are truly a magnificent watch. So when he's on, he is truly good, and right now he is on. Unfortunately, he of course later in the game couldn't give us the big hit, but he put us in the ball game tonight. So you can't say too many bad things about his game tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Other quick note I wanted to have, after watching 3 games against the Milwaukee Brewers, I truly think that Milwaukee is a team that Scott Harris would like to be like when the Tigers grow up. Just the way that their roster is constructed, the way that they go about hitting, their pitching staff being, again, constructed the way it is, I think is a very reminiscent of a lot of the things that Scott Harris has preached over the last year and a half, 2 years. Guys like, who are these veterans now? These Willie Adameses, Christian Yelich, Jake Bowers is on this team, Gary Sanchez, guys who, not necessarily grizzled veterans necessarily, but guys who have been around for a while. They know how to win. They know how to, conduct themselves as big leaguers. Scott Harris loves guys like that, clearly with his acquisition of guys like Canha and Urshela. And then you've got the young guys. You've got the Tarangs. You've got the Ortizes, Blake Perkins, Jackson Churio, Sal Frelick as well. Guys like that who, you bring in and you really hope that, they can inject some life into this team and get on base and improve the offense. And they're doing that, and they're having a lot of success with it. And then they're taking a lot of pitchers right now, and they're just making them better. Guys like Miguel out of the bullpen specifically comes to mind, but also Freddie Peralta. He's been decent for a while, but he's just a consistent
Bryce Wilson
arm.
pretty good against us.
Exactly. Guys like that. So it just reminded me, like, man, this could be us right now if some things go differently. So maybe not necessarily a great comparison, but just a team that's building it from the inside out, especially offensively. And I think it's something that Scott Harris would like to look at. Do you see any of those comparisons, or am I kind of reaching there?
No, dude, I think it's a great observation. I think, especially with Willy Adames, who of course haunts us for many reasons, most of which he used to be in our organization. But you just look at his game, and you just look at the energy he plays with, and the tenacity, and the idea that really no game is out of reach for this team. And it's just like the spark is alive, and not just like one of them. We talk about, Akil Baduz being the spark, or Wensil Perez being the spark for this team. That team in that lineup legitimately has 5 sparks that are just like, they're just spark plugs for the entire rest of the offense. And you're right. I think Scott Harris would love to hone something in like that. Now, my question is, and this is an interesting organizational question, do you think Scott Harris, let's say everything was the same coming out of spring training, everything happened the exact same, do you think Scott Harris dumps Eric Haas, who had an amazing spring for the Brewers, and picks up Gary Sanchez?
Ooh, I don't think he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he does.
I agree. Yeah. It's just such an interesting move. Now, it's kind of worked out for them. I mean, he's not, of course, been terrible offensively, or rather defensively, but he's been pretty good offensively. Of course, his knock as a defensive catcher is, we all know, not the greatest. I really wonder when all the chips were down and everything was the same, if Eric Haas makes that baseball team, if Scott Harris is leading the way and making all the decisions. He dropped him off of our team, so maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that there's like a personal vendetta or anything, but that wouldn't strike me as a move that he would make in that situation. But the Brewers did it, and they seem to have found the like I talk about all the time, the X factor, right? The vibes are right there, and they're one of the few teams in the NL that's actually playing above 500 baseball. I mean, the NL is on a truly historic pace of mediocrity, and they're a little bit of a ray of hope for the NL. And so, when you're playing mediocre ball clubs like we often do, you should take advantage of that, and they are, and they're winning meaningful baseball games, and they're kind of shoving it to Craig Counsell over in Cubland. So, hey, it's not always just about the personnel you have around. Sometimes it is about the players that you keep in the dugout. So,
yeah, I agree. I would like to take a really fast look for as a refresher for some people who may have lost kind of the big picture of where this team is at. Before we get into that, I just want everybody to know, I want this team to play well. I want this team to do well. I think that Scott Harris has a decent plan in place right now. He's committed to it. He clearly wants to stick to it, and I'd like to see it out. But in order to do that, I think we do have to kind of take a step back and look at where we've come from in the last 10 years, 5 years, or 8, 9, 10 years. I was looking back at this week because I was reading some things. I was listening to the radio. Local Michigan sports radio has a very weird relationship with the Detroit Tigers. a lot of Michigan is either one or the other, doesn't pay attention to the Tigers, ignores it, or is diehard fans like we are. And clearly some of the personalities that I was listening to hadn't really paid attention. They were referencing the team and the team's farm system, and that, you know, they were complaining, well, they've said that the farm system is one of the top farm systems for the last 10 years. And I said out loud in my vehicle while driving, who is saying that? Because our farm system for a while there under Dave Dombrowski, early on in the last 10 years, if we're talking like 10, 9, 8, 7 years ago, was very, very poor. So it got me thinking about where we've come from, how we've gotten to the point we're at now. I kind of looked at the last 10 years since the Tigers last made the playoffs in 2014, and I've kind of outlined it into 3 eras, if you will, since we're talking eras all the time these days. From 2015 until 2017, I kind of titled it the Holding On to the Past era. The team had just made it to
That's a great name. That's a great name.
Team had just made it to the playoffs. 2015, they had a bit of a downturn, only won 74 games. It's Brad Ausmus's second year. That 2015 team still had quite a few really good players on the team, still was trying. Guys you would know that you watched and you paid attention to. McCann, Miggy, Kinsler, Jose Iglesias, Castellanos, Yoenis Cespedes was still on that team. This is still in the Victor Martinez era. Different pitchers. Alfredo Simon was a pitcher on that team. David Price, Verlander, Shane Green. Still a lot of really good baseball players on that team, still trying in 2015 specifically. Then you go over to 2016, the next year, and you start to see, you know, the team trying to pull levers, trying to, you know, make moves to make the team better and to kind of keep the status quo, keep the window open, as a lot of people say. Guys like Justin Upton being a part of the team, bringing in Cam Maben. I know that's kind of a sore spot for you, Case, but the JD Martinez era.
We don't have to talk about it.
Tyler Collins makes an appearance in 2016, but
middle finger himself.
That's the guy. But we see the moves to get Matthew Boyd in. We had our lovable Alex Wilson in the bullpen. K-Rod was a part of this team. So still making moves to try to improve the team, but not really commit to it necessarily. And then we get into 2017, 2018, and this is where it starts to really go downhill. 2017 with the 64-win team, almost lost 100 games, and you start to see the team kind of come apart a little bit. You still have the start of the year with all those guys. A lot of them get traded. Starting that year, that's kind of where, again, they start to kind of realize, hey, maybe we're not where we thought we were. Jordan Zimmerman was signed, I believe, this year. Guys like that. Michael Fulmer was on this team. We are still living in the past of, wow, we can maybe add to this team and do well. And that's just not how it was going to work out. And then you see the team in 2018, and it's just such a different ball club from those first 2 to 3 years of this era. You have the Baseball Reference page, the players go James McCann, John Hicks, Dixon Machado, Jose Iglesias, Candelario, Jacoby Jones, Leonis Martin. So that is quite the step back team-wise from the last 3 years, and I think it's really the demarcation point between really trying and starting to have this, you know, thought process of we have to rebuild this organization. Am I making sense so far? Am I still tracking here with you?
Oh, I'm tracking.
Okay. All right. So then we get into, you know, again, 2018 through 2020. It was full on tear it all down, rebuild mode. We have 2019, the worst Tigers team since 2003, where the team lost 114 games. You have just the motley crew here. Again, going down the list of players: Grayson Greiner, Brandon Dixon, Gordon Beckham, Jordy Mercer, Dowell Lugo, Christian Stewart. Man, I haven't thought about Christian Stewart in a minute.
Dude.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about a lot of these guys in a minute.
Castellanos is still on this team somehow, and he's the only hitter on the team that was above a 100 OPS plus. So that tells you a little bit about the lineup makeup. It was just bad. We've been there. We've been through it. We know how that went. Obviously, 2020, we wanted different for the team. COVID made it weird. Team didn't perform well. Finished 23-35. Finished in last place in the Central. And again, it wasn't good. But it kind of signaled of we need to try to do something different here. We're going to get a different manager in. That offseason, they signed AJ Hinch, and Al Avila is trying to make this team better. And that's where we get into the third era. And I really tried to come up with a cheeky little title here for this one. Couldn't come up with anything, so I just titled it Alberto Attempts to Win. And this is recent history at this point, so we know how it went, and it didn't. Guys like Javier Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez were signed in the years 2021, 2022. They tried to build from the farm system, bringing in guys from the minors, such as Willie Castro. Obviously, Candelario is a part of this. Akil Baddoo. And then he tried to add along the edges with guys like Mazzara. You bring in guys like Wilson Ramos into the team 2021, and you kind of improve a little bit. You know, people perk up a little bit. Maybe Alberto's onto something here, and then they spend the money. They start to get in some guys who we thought were bigger free agents, and the team flops in 2022. Loses 96 games. Al Avila loses his job, and we then see kind of the start of, after 2022, the current era we're in right now of the Scott Harris era. I say all of this, I outline all of this pain to all of you, not to, beat a dead horse here, but to kind of give you the bigger picture of where we've been. Everyone likes to say we haven't won since 2014. We haven't really tried, yada, yada, yada. And that's just not true. The rebuild hasn't been happening for 10 years, 9 years. Truly, the rebuild for this team started in 2020, 2019, 2018, 2020, sometime in there, wherever you want to pick a point in there. And it was Al Avila's baby. That was Al Avila's job to rebuild this team. And he failed. He failed miserably. No matter what you think about Al Avila, it didn't work. Did he have some wins? Of course. Did he have some losses? Absolutely. We're still living with some of them right now. But for the people who are being impatient about this team and where we're at currently in the year 2024, this team is improving. This team this year, no matter what you see in the standings in the AL Central right now, and in baseball in general, this team is having success and is taking a step forward this year from where we've been. 500 baseball is something that the Detroit Tigers have not sniffed in a long time, and especially in the AJ Hinch era. Again, I say all of this not to scar people over again, but just to point out the fact that improvement is important. Teams don't go in 2 years, 1 year, from being awful to being great unless you go out and you spend a lot of money. If you have issues with how I'm saying this, you need to go to Illich, and you need to have the conversation, because we know he's not going to spend the money. So if Scott Harris is going to build a winner with the Detroit Tigers, this is how he's going to have to do it. And that's building around the edges, building up the organization a little bit at a time. And hopefully when this team shows the real promise of winning and being above 500 for extended periods of time, he can Scott Harris can talk Mr. Illich into spending some money to really send him over the top. But we're not there yet. We've taken the next step. This is the next step. The team is hanging around 500 into June, which if you had told me that at the end of last year, I would have been ecstatic. Now, if you would have told me that we'd have been in fourth place and the AL Central is one of the best divisions in baseball, then I might have a little bit different reaction. But if you take this team in a vacuum right now of where we've been and where we're at right now, we're having success, and we need to really appreciate the wins that we have now and root for this team to make strides going forward this year, going into next year, and to understand that this team is headed in a good direction. Sorry, rant is over. What do you think, Case?
I love it. That was great. I mean, I kind of feel like I've been through a trench in World War I, but I mean, here we are. Couple things. How do we feel about the Alberto Accords?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
that'll work.
Okay, yeah. I channeled my inner Avengers on that one. Shout out to the Sokovia Accords. My only counter in here, and I love everything you're saying. You're spot on with so much of it. My only counter, and this is really just this year, and so it's we'll even see if it plays out the way it does. But of course, you know who I'm going to say, the Kansas City Royals, right? I mean, we go from 100 losses, and you're right, they spent a lot of money, but it seemed like they spent money in the right ways, and they were actually kind of cost efficient. Not all of their signings have been home runs either. I mean, Hunter Renfroe has not been the Hunter Renfroe that everyone's known and loved as the Trout lookalike. So, I mean, there hasn't been amazing production out of everyone they've signed, but they seem to have, again, just put together this core of hodgepodge players that just like playing together, and they have all the right tools, and they all complement each other, and it does seem like they went from rags to riches in just an off season. So it can be done. It can. That's not really what the Tigers are going for. And that's exactly what you're speaking to is they're going for a sustainable winner like we had in 2010s. I think it's interesting because there is just such an secular nature to the MLB as a whole that really you can almost guarantee that in 10 years, the teams that are good right now may not be good. At least 50% of them are going to be looking like the Miami Marlins look like now, or the Chicago White Sox look right now. And it's going to be the exact opposite, where one day the Chicago White Sox are going to be good again, and we're going to be talking about them like a formidable force in the AL Central. And it really just makes me think of Phillies fans, and that they better enjoy it right now, because we know what Dave Dombrowski does to organizations. We have seen it firsthand at the worst of it, and they better count their blessings, because they are going to be bad again, and they are fantastic right now. They're best team in baseball right now. All of that is true. We were too. And it's hard to believe for so many people that we were the best team in baseball, but we were. And I know we never won a World Series, and I know but those years are so far behind us, and people have such a bad perception of what this team is right now that they forget how good it was in the last decade. That they look at the Phillies and like this team is unstoppable. They're going to be good forever. And it's just, it's not true. And so, you look at what this team was left with and some of the names that you mentioned that were brought in the organization just to keep the wheels moving. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense to get to where we're at. And now it feels like we have, at the very least, the personnel behind it to move it in the correct direction. Honestly, the jury's still out on Scott Harris. I love the guy. I can listen to the guy talk for months on end and not be tired of it. I think he says all the right things, but actions speak a lot louder than words. And we have yet to see an amazing success story out of Scott Harris thus far. But if you maybe put money on it, I would say that it's somewhere out there. It's just waiting to happen. The real blight is ownership. And the real blight is the fact that this ownership and the Ilitch family post Mike Ilitch have chosen a different way. And honestly, I think it's why they hired Scott Harris, because anyone's good pitch to an owner is, hey, I'm not going to go spend your money. You spend your money on me, and you can sign me to a big contract, and we don't know what Scott Harris makes, but I guarantee it's 7 figures. And I'm going to do this in the most cost-efficient way possible, and it's going to be fine. It's not necessarily going to be the quickest turnaround, but this is how we're going to do it. And I'm not going to go spend the $400 million or the $700 million on Shohei Ohtani. And we're going to do this a little bit more efficient, or, realistically, effectively, for your cost benefit. And that's probably exactly the sales pitch that Scott Harris did in his interview. And it worked. And this is where we're at now. Now, of course, there's probably going to be a day where Scott is allowed to open the pocketbook and Chris says you can go spend what you may need on things that you may need. But has this team earned it? No, probably not. And so, they're probably waiting for that. I just worry that you're wasting primes of people's careers like Tarek Skubal, like Riley Green, the flashes of greatness from someone like a, random kid that we would have never thought would be on this team like Wenceel Perez. And then also the big contract signing of a Colt Keith. And maybe saying, this isn't the winning club that we want it to be right now. Let's punt until the next, the Jace Youngs, the Kiter Monteros, the Max Clarks make their appearances, and that's the winning core. That's a scary proposition. That's a scary proposition for someone like me who would really prefer us to take advantage of some really down years from the AL Central, and then also be ready for years like this where they're dominating and they're one of the best divisions of baseball, and we can't hold a candle to them. So you put very good things in perspective. This team is day in and day out a complete frustration to watch, but I think as a whole, this team is a lot better than it was last year, and that's market improvement, and that's what Hinch and Scott Harris are probably telling themselves, and Jeff Greenberg for that matter, and Ryan Garco, and everyone that's responsible for all of this is probably saying things are in a better place than they were when I got here, and that's good for me. And that's good for the fan base as a whole. I loved the walkthrough history. Some of those names, wild to think about. Just wild. Jordy Mercer. Wow.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Long-lived Tigers tenure there for Jordy Mercer.
Exactly. Wasn't there 2 separate stints too? Because there was like the one that I think he was on the major league team, and then we like signed him again to a minor league contract, and I don't know if he ever made another stint. But and then oh my God, you just had to bring up Cam Maben. That whole stretch where you got rid of him and acquired him and got rid of him again like 4 different times, and jeez, just insane. But I hope we're at a place now where we have a Jack Flaherty and we can pay him rather than get rid of him. But if this team, like I said last week, if this team is 4 or 5 games out of the wild card and someone's offering a pretty nice prospect for him, I think you have to take that. And that's still the reality of where this organization's at. But they gotta figure out the hitting. They gotta figure out more consistent offense before we can really do a lot better things with this team. But some quick injury updates. Of course, we talked a little bit about Kenta and Flaherty. Both had early exits to their starts. Kenta only threw 2 pitches in his last start. Started tonight. Looked out of sync. Something to monitor. # mystery injury every time injury watch at the very least every time he goes out. And Flaherty is the more concerning one. Still, quote unquote, on pace to make his next start, but he did only throw 60 pitches in his last start rather. 5 scoreless innings though, and I mean he shoved like we talked about a little bit earlier. So it seems like he's gotten a cortisone shot for his back tightness, and hopefully praying that he can make his next start. Colt Keith and Akil Baddoo, I didn't actually get to see this collision, but they had a little bit of a run-in, some miscommunication in short right field. What did you see from that collision? Was it as bad as it looked kind of on the replays?
Well, it seems like it hasn't ended up being as bad as it actually did look on the broadcast. Just a really bad situation of I don't know whether Colt didn't hear Badu or Badu didn't say a lot. I don't know, but Badu was running into his left and Colt was running out to his left, and they kind of just met in the middle. No one made the catch, which was just insult to injury. And apparently they hit knees together, or Colt's knee hit Akil's knee. I don't know, but Colt came out of the game with a gimpy knee, apparently a little bruised up, and Badu stayed in the game. So I guess that was a blessing as well. But yeah, it was just a really weird situation. Dumb defensive mistakes. Again, this team is kind of starting to rear its ugly head a little bit more recently.
The defense has been questionable at best. And yeah, it looked like Colt really was shaken up from this one. He made his first appearance back in a game tonight, pinch hitting. So it seems like things are okay. I don't think Badu's seen playing time since. I know he stayed in the game, but it seems like there might be some underlying issues there too. So, yeah, they just both seem to miss the cue of, hey, I got it. Hey, no, I got it. And really, it's Badu's ball. It's Badu's ball, and I think Colt knows that, and I think they've told Colt that. So, never like to see a collision though. Never like to see guys go down because of your own doing. And then the bombshell today, Javier Baez to the 10-day IL. We got this announcement midday today. Clubhouse opened, and it's more injury news. We were blessed for a month and a half. So really, can we really blame the baseball gods for getting back at us? But you texted me, and it's 100% true. Truly a mystery injury here. Seems like he's had lower back issues for quite some time. Now they are rearing their ugly head again, and it seems like he sat down AJ, even had a pretty candid conversation with it. This is all Javi's side of the story, but had a pretty candid conversation with AJ, like, hey, I really need to get this looked at. So he's completely shut down at this point. I think he's going to go look at some doctors or get some opinions from doctors elsewhere. And so it seems like the narrative thus far, from a quote from him, is that he wants to be good and ready to go for, quote unquote, the second half. So I don't know if we see Javi again for quite some time. And then the call up for him, Ryan Kryler gets his moments. He actually started tonight too. He already committed one pretty bad, pretty lousy error, which is so strange because the glove is impressive. He actually is really good defensively. He made a great jumping catch tonight, but he had quite the miscue on one of the balls that was hit to him. So bat is always going to be the question for Kreidler, and he's just coming off an injury, as he seemingly always does. So we'll see. But the big question is where and when do we see Javi again in 2024?
It'll be August, I think. From what he's saying, from all of the comments about it, it seems like they're going to really give him time to get it figured out, which at this point I don't really blame them if they've got an excuse to kind of let him kind of rest and not have to worry about all of the dramatics with him. I think that's probably for the best.
Does your gut say it's real? It's legit?
I am going to plead the fifth on that one. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, on the one hand, do I think Major League teams have done that in the past? I definitely think so. I think there's like confirmed accounts of that happening.
Oh yeah. The Mets got in trouble with it, and the dude got banned.
Yeah. So I don't know whether it's a real concern that they're kind of turning into something more to kind of get him out of the way. I would never be able to say something like that with conviction anyway. But it may work out in the Tigers' favor in the long run. So I don't know.
Billy Epler was the one that misused the injured list. He got investigated and got himself a 1-year ban. We all know the struggles Javi has faced this year. Of course, I think both picked him as a comeback player of the year in our predictions.
Yikes, really?
Yeah, I mean, I know I did, and I think you did too, just because it was like, who else would it be? So I mean, I don't know. I think that ship is sailed at this point. I will always love Javi. I really will. I have a special place in my heart, and I really don't even know why. I love the guy. It's one of those guys you love when he's on your team, and probably very much don't like when he's not on your team. And if he could just hit just a little bit, it would make this offense so much better. And he was doing really well with runners in scoring position for his entire time that he was playing. And of course, the defense was as good as we've ever seen it. And so it is a loss for this team. It's just another opportunity for Ryan Kreidler to finally show that he can do some things. He's not going to get full playing time. Seems like they're going to kind of platoon him with McKinstry. But I think we're going to feel that one as much as we even probably don't like to say it. And for some reason, there is still that feeling whenever he's up at the plate that he can do something. I don't have that feeling really with Ryan Kreidler as of yet. I'm willing to be surprised, but that is the big one. That is one that we're going to feel for a minute. And of course, hopefully this is a situation where it leads to better times rather than the inevitable maybe conversation that we have to have at the end of the season. And Scott has to have with many different people if he is the future of the team at shortstop or if it's time to move on. That's a big question. And I don't know what that answer is just yet. I think a lot of it has to do with these precious few months of the Javi experiment. So get well, Javi. Please come back and hit some baseballs very hard and very far when you come back. Weekly recurring segment. We figure, since we send down our most anticipated, most coveted 1-1 overall draft pick, Spencer Torkelson, we must figure out how he's doing down in AAA. So, Josh, how has Torque fared in his first week and a half in a Toledo Mud Hens jersey?
His minor league stats this year are 27 at-bats, 9 hits, 10 runs, 1 homer, 6 RBIs, hitting .333, on-base percentage of .455, and an OPS of 1.011. So he's
sick,
seemingly hitting AAA okay. I mean, here's the thing, and I said this about J-Hen, Justin Henry Malloy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really early to make a sweeping statement about a guy at a level when he's new at it. So maybe the AAA teams haven't got the scouting report on him yet, or something. I don't see Torque making an appearance on this team until after the All-Star break at the earliest. I think it's very much a 2022 situation for him, where he kind of has to get it figured out and show for an extended period of time that he's got it figured out, which is unfortunate. But long term, and something that's staring me in the face right now is his bio. He's still 24 years old. So still a little bit of time left for him, but it is waning. It is waning.
It is waning for sure. I mean, you read that stat line and it hurts because, you look at a night like tonight and it's like, oh, well, there it is. Maybe just one clutch Torque hit and we win this baseball game. But I think you're right? I think they want to see some very specific things from him, and they're not gonna do this a third time. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. And so that this is the time that he has to really shape up. What concerns me is he is just a quadruple A player, and he just struggles with, albeit very, very difficult major league pitching. But it seems like wherever he goes in the minors, it's just fine. He is okay and he does great. It's the major league at bats. It's the pressure that he feels. It's probably a little bit of the atmosphere he's around. And realistically, we have no idea what happens behind closed doors. But what are the messages that are given to him on a daily basis? Is he not clicking with a specific hitting coach? Is he not, whatever it may be, right? There's so many different things that we don't see that are on the field. We just see the end product, and there's a lot of things going on in that kid's head, right? There's just a lot of things, and so, I truly hope he finds peace, and I hope he finds a way to kind of calm himself, because I know, and I would be the same way, right? I played competitive golf, and I loved it, right? But I was so inside my head all of the time, right? Like, and I wasn't terrible, I wasn't bad, but I could have been so much better in high school if I just got out of my own way. And it's so sad, because you look at someone like Spencer Torkelson, who has all the talent. He has all of the talent to be amazing. But this is such a results-oriented game that when you are faced with these adversities and these really difficult situations you have to overcome, you have to be able to be flexible and be malleable and really come out the other side. And so I hear those stats, and I'm just like, man, this team could really use those exact stats in the middle of their order. And so we know it's there. We hope it's there. We just need to see it a little bit more consistently, and then also too, obviously, at the major league level. So we'll continue to monitor Torque's progress or regress in Toledo as it kind of comes along. But yes, you're right. Too early to tell at the very least. So, real quick, the Tigers made a little bit of an announcement this week that I want to go over and just I have some thoughts about. They announced new amenities coming to Comerica Park. They're coining it the Home Plate Club. And essentially, what they're doing is they're offering new premium seating behind home plate between the two dugouts that will replace, quote unquote, 500 of the traditional seats. So 500-ish of the traditional seats. And they have various different amenities for them, least of which are like, food and beverage, special access to service. I'm trying to find the full list right here. I know there's an article that I wanted to have pulled up. And my biggest thing with this, it's great that they're so mindful of the things that make a fan experience great. I'm very happy about that. And their whole quote with this whole thing has been, this is a response to fan surveys and feedback that they've heard throughout many years of running Comerica Park. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. One, we have no idea how much this is going to cost. And two, this is something you announce after you sign Shohei Ohtani. This is not something you announce after you've been pinching pennies all across the board with every free agent that there has been. You do not make this announcement when your team is below 500, when it's not the most fun to go to the ballpark right now, and you're not sure you're going to see a win. And what you're doing is taking away, honestly, kind of reasonable pricing. Like, I know like $100 a seat is tough for people, and that's basically what it comes around to. If you're going to get pretty good seats for about, I don't know, 14, 15 rows up and behind home plate, it's not that bad. And now you're going to take those away and probably charge, I don't even know what these are going to cost, dude. Like, and it's just more money in those people's pockets. And it's like, how do we know you're going to spend this and put it back on the team? We don't. We have no proof of that. And then you, on top of that, have however much hot dogs cost, however much beer costs. And it's just like, it seems so backwards. If this team was even marginally better, I would be applauding something like this, because I'm sure at some point I'm going to be the sucker that purchases a ticket like this. But right now, it comes across as sly at best. and really, really, really backhanded at worst. And I saw this, and of course the fan response was not the greatest, but it seemed like, the beat writers were pretty excited about it and whatever. I'm just like, how can this go so far over your head? But I don't know. What did you think of the announcement that that the Illich company made about Comerica Park?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It really just came across as insensitive at best. Um, the fan surveys and feedback, I mean, if you're talking about the season ticket holders, maybe people that go to 20, 30 plus games a year that would utilize this more, potentially. I don't know. As a guy that tends to try and spend less than $50 a ticket to go to a Tigers game when I go. I try to find the best deal, but usually I try to stick around that $50 mark. There's no way I would ever be you know, interested in something like this. I mean, it's cool. It's bringing Comerica Park into the modern world. I was talking with a coworker last week, and it was very much like, well, we were hoping they'd put a dome over the stadium, but it looks like they're focused on some other things.
That's a great point. Oh man, I mean,
I
a
don't-
dome is like $1 billion, but still, great point.
Think of all the money they'd make from not rescheduling games. It's just and
exactly
things you
right.
could host in the winter. I don't know. I would think that it would make a lot of sense, but I don't know. But really, when it comes down to it, it feels, as a fan who doesn't spend a whole lot of money at the games, at like a slap in the face, because I don't remember, did they announce the dollar the price tag on the entire
no.
no, not the seating pricing, the price tag on the whole project to get it upgraded.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, I think it wasn't like the scoreboard and all the renovations they did over this last offseason, like 30 million. So I think this is probably less than that. But I mean, here are some of the amenities you get that you're probably going to pay a pretty penny for. VIP parking with McLaren Garage, a private entrance, quote unquote, the best seats, cushioned premium seating, all-inclusive food and beverage, in-seat service, limited edition merchandise, exclusive events and experiences, which I'm sure you'll have to pay again for, private club and restroom access, and priority access to postseason tickets and events. That last one's hilarious. Like, what is so great about this? That and again, like I'm sure like it's gonna be cool and it's gonna be a lot like what a lot of other teams have. But how much is it going to cost? And what are the logistics of it? Because again, you're going to tell me that I can't buy a ticket, the ticket that I want, the reason I go to baseball games, to sit in a good seat. I've honestly, and this kind of comes from a little bit of a privileged place, but when I go to a baseball game, I want to have a good seat. I've never sat in the outfield. I don't think I've ever sat in the outfield at a Major League Baseball game. Now I'm going to have to, or at least on the foul line, which I have sat in before. But I don't like that experience. I would much rather just go and watch a baseball game on TV if I'm going to have to sit in the outfield. And I know it's cheaper and I know it's the whole thing, but like, I don't know. It just, it rubs me the wrong way. Now, I will say, sorry, excuse me, there is this weird verbiage in this article by Jason Beck on MLB.com that talks about lower bowl underneath the stands. I think that's just the entrance, but if it is something like Texas, which I don't, again, they go on in this article later, so it seems like it kind of contradicts itself to talk about that it does get the project will, quote, the project will replace about 500 traditional seats behind home plate with more spacious cushion seating. So they are replacing those, but this under Comerica Park thing, like kind of like what the Rangers have right now, that would be sick. That would be awesome if they did the whole on the field level seating and it was under the current seating and everyone still could buy the tickets. That would be a legitimately cool idea. Don't know if it's possible with all the renovations you have to do. It'd probably be much more expensive, but that would be cool. I don't think that's what this is. This is clearly replacing the seats that we already have and paying more money for it and having some cool, flashy other amenities. Again, you don't do this when the team is this mediocre. That's what I say. I don't know. I think that I think this was such a bad time to announce something like this, and I will be quite spiteful next time I enter Comerica Park because there'll probably not be the seats that I want. So who knows? Maybe I won't even ever enter Comerica Park again until they're in the World Series. Take that, Illich. We'll see. We'll see. We have 2 more games against the Nationals. Whew. Please win this series. That's all I ask for. Please win this series. Coming off a bad loss in the Milwaukee series, we would really very much like to take a series again. We would like to know what that feels like. We have Olsen versus Irvin and Mize versus Mackenzie Gore. Nats are, of course, 31-35 after this evening's loss. And then we go to Houston. Both very gettable series. Josh, how do we fare the rest of the week?
Having Maeda, Olsen, and Miles lined up for this national series really set us up for a tough series.
Quite a bit of failure.
I am very interested to see what changes Olsen has made over the last little bit for the start today or for tomorrow. I guess it is technically almost today. It's pretty late here.
We're getting there.
We'll see. I truly hope that they can shake whatever this weird streaky funk they're in right now, and string together some wins. It seems like it's pretty difficult for us to do right now. It's win a couple, lose a few, win a few, lose a couple, and we're just going around in circles. So I hope they can get on a run, find some consistency. This lineup is interesting to watch every day. I mean, it's very, very inexperienced outside of guys like Riley and Gio and Canna. So
Canna.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. I set myself up for failure every single day I watch Tigers, and I got to find the little wins on days like, especially like tonight after the game. So
the one prediction I want you to make, does Reese bounce back in his start tomorrow?
Yes. Yeah, I think he gets a quality start tomorrow.
Okay. Nice. That hopefully that leads to a Tigers win, but as we know,
no guarantees. It's Reese.
Zero guarantees. Which, by the way, I don't know what this changed, but Ben sent me today. This is also codified. Did you see that we still have a 19% chance of making the postseason before today's game?
Yeah, Baseball References one. I was looking at it a little earlier today. Baseball References one is still up above 18%, 90%, somewhere in there. So yeah, I did see.
There's hope out there somewhere.
I mean, who knew that we'd be a wild card team this year? I would have never predicted that.
We're going to be this year's Marlins. That's what I'm shooting for.
As long as this year's Marlins doesn't turn into this year's Marlins. Yeah. If that...
Right. Yeah.
That made no sense.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though. Yeah, the Marlins are bad again this year. And then, yeah, the Astros are better than they started out the year for sure. They've definitely trended upwards, but still a very gettable series, and we typically tend to play them pretty well. So I would like to both be at 500 and then jump above 500. Don't know if that's possible for this team, but I would like to see this team be a game above 500 by the end of the week. So we shall see. Another important note, not going to lie, Josh, don't know how much Tigers baseball I'm going to be watching in lieu of the U.S. Open. So that is on the docket for this weekend and the end of this week. So very excited to again see Tiger Woods make another major cut because that is what he does. And I'm just going to say he's going to surprise some people. He's going to surprise some people. The cut's probably going to be 10 over. So, 13 on the stint meter at Pinehurst number 2 is going to play well for old Tiger Woods.
Well,
will you be watching?
Oh yeah. I was some news. Nice. Good news. Pinehurst did tweet out today that they have banned Officer Gillis from attending. So Scotty should be safe.
No way. That's a real thing.
I don't know if it's a real tweet, but it's the meme was on the internet, so I don't know. But if it is real,
awesome.
Gangster.
Dude, and you know what's really sad about that whole thing? The Scotty, of course, we're referencing the Scotty Scheffler arrest that took over the world, the last major that we watched. Was it a major or was it just a golf tournament? Was it just a regular golf tournament? I can't remember.
No, it was a major. It was a PGA.
Yeah, it was the PGA, right? Okay, yeah. A dude lost his life.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like that whole story was overshadowed by a cop really probably just wanting the spotlight and all of that. And it's just like, what are we doing, guys? Someone died today, someone actually, and now a family is without a father and someone's without a son. Like, it's just, that's so sad. And no one even thinks about that whole thing. Instead, they think about Scotty Scheffler in handcuffs. So that's fun. So that's good. That Officer Gillis, is that his name? Is that what he said his name was?
Yes.
He's not going to be there. That's good to know. All right. Well, enjoy the U.S. Open, everyone. Josh, where can the kids find us?
We are on all of the socials at Old English D Pod. Give us a follow. Give us a like. I tweet out the podcast release at the morning of the podcast typically. So give us a like. Give us a follow. Get updated on the podcast. We look forward to another week of disappointing baseball. I'm just kidding. It'll be good. I'm excited about this week. It should go better from here.
Hopefully. We certainly hope so. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. As always, guys, thank you so much for listening. And as always, go